The sun rose over Seoul, painting the city in soft hues of orange and pink. The streets were alive with the usual morning bustle. People rushing to work, children heading to school, and vendors setting up their stalls. It was an ordinary day, or so it seemed. Suddenly, a low hum filled the air, growing louder by the second. People stopped in their tracks, looking up at the sky. A massive object descended slowly, blocking out the sunlight. Panic spread like wildfire as citizens realized what they were witnessing: an alien spaceship. The spacecraft was enormous, its metallic surface gleaming under the fading sunlight. It hovered silently above Namsan Tower, casting a shadow that stretched across the city. Cars screeched to a halt, and people ran for cover, unsure of what would happen next. Governments around the world scrambled to respond. But before anyone could take action, a voice boomed through every device connected to the internet. Televisions, radios, phones. All of them crackled to life with the same message. "Greetings, inhabitants of Earth," the voice said calmly. "We are the Valith. We come not as conquerors, but as protectors. Your planet faces imminent destruction from a rogue asteroid. Without intervention, this celestial body will collide with Earth within months, wiping out all life. We offer our assistance to safeguard your species." The voice belonged to Ambassador Kael'thor, a towering figure with shimmering blue skin who appeared on holographic projections worldwide. His presence was both awe-inspiring and unsettling. He explained that the Valith had detected the asteroid's trajectory long before humans could, and had traveled light years to intervene. "Earth is now under our protection," he concluded. "Cooperate with us, and together we shall ensure your survival." While many people celebrated the news, relief washing over them like a wave, others remained skeptical. Among them was C.O. Jean, a brilliant astrophysicist working at Korea's National Space Research Institute. She watched the broadcast from her office, frowning deeply. Something about the Valith explanation didn't sit right with her. C.O. Jean turned to Min Soo, her colleague and close friend, who was equally stunned by the announcement. "This doesn't make sense," she said, pointing at her computer screen. "Look at the data. If there really is an asteroid on a collision course, its trajectory should match certain gravitational patterns. But these readings are inconsistent." Min Soo leaned closer, studying the graphs and charts displayed on her monitor. "You're saying the asteroid might not even exist?" "I'm saying it's possible," C.O. Jean replied, her tone serious. "Or if it does exist, its path isn't natural. Someone or something could be manipulating it." Their conversation was interrupted when Jae-hyun, a journalist known for uncovering conspiracies, walked into the room. He had been investigating rumors surrounding recent UFO sightings and wanted to hear C.O. Jean's thoughts on the Valith arrival. When she shared her concerns, his eyes lit up with interest. "Manipulation?" Jae-hyun repeated, pulling out his notebook. "That's a bold claim. Do you have proof?" "Not yet," C.O. Jean admitted, "but I intend to find some." As days passed, the Valith began establishing bases around the globe, including one near Incheon. They claimed these facilities were necessary to monitor the asteroid and prepare defensive measures. However, strange occurrences started being reported by locals living near the bases. Livestock went missing overnight, power surges disrupted neighborhoods, and eerie lights flickered from restricted zones. Rumors spread quickly, fueling distrust among the population. Despite the growing unease, most people chose to believe the Valith narrative. After all, who would want to trust beings capable of saving humanity from extinction? Even C.O. Jean found herself questioning whether she was overthinking things. Maybe the inconsistencies in the data were just errors, nothing more. One afternoon, Jae-hyun received a tip-off from an anonymous source claiming to have leaked documents related to the Valith. Intrigued, he met the informant late at night in a quiet cafe. The man handed him a USB drive, warning him to be careful. "If they catch you digging too deep, you'll disappear," the informant whispered before vanishing into the shadows. Back home, Jae-hyun plugged the USB drive into his laptop. What he found sent chills down his spine. The files contained classified reports detailing unusual energy signatures emanating from the Valith bases. These signatures matched patterns associated with advanced terraforming technology designed not to protect planets, but to exploit them. Jae-hyun knew he needed help making sense of the information. He reached out to Seo-jin, meeting her at a secluded park where they could talk without prying ears. As she reviewed the documents, her expression grew grimmer with each passing moment. "This confirms my suspicions," Seo-jin said finally. "They're lying. Whatever they're planning, it has nothing to do with protecting Earth." "What do you think they're after?" Jae-hyun asked. "I don't know," Seo-jin admitted. "But if we don't figure out soon, it might already be too late." Their discussion was cut short when a group of protesters marched past, chanting slogans against the Valith. At the forefront was Yuna, a passionate activist determined to expose the truth. Her fiery speeches had drawn attention from both supporters and critics, making her a controversial figure in the media. Curious, Jae-hyun approached Yuna after the protest ended. He introduced himself and shared some of the findings from the leaked documents. To his surprise, Yuna wasn't shocked. She had suspected foul play from the beginning. "We need to act fast," Yuna said firmly. "People won't listen unless we give them undeniable proof." Thus began an unlikely alliance between Seo-jin, Jae-hyun, and Yuna. Each brought unique skills to the table. Seo-jin's scientific expertise, Jae-hyun's investigative prowess, and Yuna's ability to rally public support. Together, they vowed to uncover the Valith's true intentions and warn humanity of the danger lurking beneath their facade of benevolence. As the trio prepared for their mission, the weight of responsibility settled heavily on their shoulders. The fate of Earth rested in their hands, and failure was not an option. Yet, amidst the uncertainty and fear, there was also hope, a quiet determination to fight back against forces far greater than themselves. Little did they know, their journey was only just beginning. Weeks passed since the Valith's arrival, and their presence on Earth became a part of daily life. Their massive bases dotted the planet, each one surrounded by high walls and guarded by strange, floating machines that emitted a low hum. The aliens claimed these facilities were essential for monitoring the rogue asteroid and preparing defensive measures. Yet, as time went on, more and more people began to notice odd things happening near the bases. In Incheon, where one of the largest Valith installations stood, farmers reported waking up to find entire herds of cattle gone without a trace. Power grids in nearby towns experienced sudden surges, causing blackouts and damaging appliances. At night, eerie lights flickered from inside the restricted zones, casting long shadows over surrounding fields. Locals whispered about strange noises, low rumbles and metallic clangs, that echoed through the area. Yuna, the young activist, spent most of her time speaking with residents and gathering testimonies. She carried a small notebook filled with accounts of missing pets, unexplained power failures, and glowing objects seen hovering near the base. Her goal was simple, to expose the truth behind the Valith's actions, but convincing others wasn't easy. Many still believed the aliens were here to help, dismissing the reports as paranoia or exaggeration. One evening, Yuna met Jae-hyun at a quiet cafe. He had been working tirelessly to piece together the leaked documents he'd obtained weeks earlier. With Seo-jin's help, they had uncovered troubling patterns. The energy signatures detected near the Valith bases matched readings associated with advanced terraforming technology. This kind of tech wasn't meant to protect planets. It was designed to exploit them. "Something is wrong," Jae-hyun said, sliding a folder across the table. Inside were printed maps showing the locations of Valith bases overlaid with seismic activity data. Every time their equipment activates, there's a spike in earthquakes and tremors. Yuna frowned as she studied the maps. "It's like they're destabilizing the ground beneath us." "That's exactly what I think," Jae-hyun replied. "But we need proof. Hard evidence that shows what they're really doing." Determined to get answers, Jae-hyun decided to investigate the Incheon base himself. Using his connections, he managed to acquire a drone equipped with hidden cameras. Late one night, he drove to the outskirts of the city, parking his car far enough away to avoid detection. From there, he launched the drone, guiding it silently toward the glowing perimeter of the Valith facility. The drone's camera feed revealed scenes that left Jae-hyun speechless. Rows upon rows of human-like pods lined the interior of the base, connected to pulsating machines via thick cables. Inside the pods, people floated motionless, their faces pale and expressionless. It looked like some kind of experiment, perhaps even an extraction process. Jae-hyun's hands trembled as he zoomed in on the footage, capturing every detail. Before he could gather more information, the drone suddenly stopped moving. A bright flash lit up the screen, followed by static. Panicking, Jae-hyun tried to regain control, but it was no use. The drone, and all the evidence it carried, was gone. Frustrated but undeterred, Jae-hyun returned to Seoul and shared what he had seen with Seo-jin and Yuna. They gathered in Seo-jin's apartment, spreading papers and notes across the dining table. The trio pored over the limited footage Jae-hyun had managed to save, analyzing every frame. "This changes everything," Seo-jin said finally, her voice tense. "They're not just lying about the asteroid. They're using humans for something. Maybe experiments, maybe worse." Yuna clenched her fists, anger flashing in her eyes. "We have to tell everyone. Show them this footage. Once people see it, they'll understand." "It's not enough," Jae-hyun countered. "Without solid proof linking the Veilith directly to these pods, or whatever they're doing, we'll look like conspiracy theorists. We need more." Seo-jin nodded in agreement. "He's right. What we have is suspicious, but it's not conclusive. If we go public now, the Veilith will deny everything. And if governments are already cooperating with them," she trailed off, letting the implication hang in the air. The group fell silent, each lost in thought. Finally, Yuna spoke up. "Then let's keep digging. There has to be someone who knows more, someone willing to talk." Her words sparked an idea. Jae-hyun remembered hearing rumors about retired engineers who had once worked on classified projects involving alien materials. One name kept coming up, Hyung-suk. Though elderly and reclusive, Hyung-suk was rumored to possess valuable knowledge about extraterrestrial technology. The next day, the trio set out to find him. After hours of searching, they located Hyung-suk living in a modest house on the outskirts of Seoul. His home was cluttered with old blueprints, tools, and half-finished gadgets. When they explained their mission, his expression turned grim. "You're walking a dangerous path," Hyung-suk warned, shaking his head. "The Veilith aren't to be trifled with." "We don't have a choice," Seo-jin insisted. "If we don't stop them, no one else will." Reluctantly, Hyung-suk agreed to help. He led them to a dusty corner of his workshop, where he pulled out a box containing fragments of alien machinery. "These designs resemble what you described," he said, pointing to intricate schematics etched onto the metal pieces. "But look closely, they've been modified. Whoever built these intended to harvest resources on a massive scale." Seo-jin examined the fragments carefully, her mind racing. "Harvesting resources? You mean they're draining the planet?" Hyung-suk confirmed. "Energy, minerals, water, everything. And those pods you mentioned? They might be extracting bioenergy from humans, turning us into fuel." The revelation hit them like a punch to the gut. The Veilith weren't saviors. They were predators, using humanity's trust to mask their true intentions. The weight of the situation settled heavily on their shoulders, but also fueled their resolve. "We can't let them win," Yuna declared, her voice steady despite the fear in her heart. "If we work together, we can shut them down." Hyung-suk hesitated, then nodded. "There's one thing I can do. Years ago, I developed a program capable of interfacing with alien systems. With some tweaking, it might allow you to access their network and disable their operations." Hope flickered in Seo-jin's eyes. "Can you make it work?" "It won't be easy," Hyung-suk admitted. "Their security protocols are likely impenetrable. But if anyone can crack them, it's me." Over the next few days, the group threw themselves into preparations. Hyung-suk worked tirelessly to adapt his program, while Seo-jin and Jae-hyun gathered intelligence on the layout of the Incheon base. Yuna focused on rallying public support, organizing protests to draw attention to the growing list of anomalies linked to the Veilith. Despite their efforts, the stakes felt insurmountable. Every step forward came with new challenges, and the looming threat of discovery hung over them like a dark cloud. Still, they pressed on, driven by a shared determination to protect their world. Late one night, as they reviewed their plans in Seo-jin's apartment, Jae-hyun broke the silence. "Do you ever wonder why they chose Earth?" he asked quietly. Out of all the planets in the universe, why here? Co Jean glanced at him, her expression thoughtful. Maybe because we're vulnerable, or maybe because we're worth something to them. Either way, Yuna added, her tone resolute, we're not going to let them take it from us. With renewed purpose, the trio finalized their strategy. They knew infiltrating the Veilith base would be risky, possibly even suicidal. But they also knew they couldn't stand by and watch as their planet and their future was stolen away. As dawn broke over Seoul, painting the sky in soft hues of orange and pink, they prepared for the fight of their lives. Whatever lay ahead, they were ready to face it. Together, the days grew darker, both literally and figuratively. The Veilith's influence spread like a shadow across the globe. Governments handed over control of critical systems, power grids, communication networks, satellites, all under the guise of coordination to protect Earth from the alleged asteroid threat. Yet, as more authority shifted into alien hands, the cracks in their story widened. Co Jean, Jae-hyun, Yuna, and Hayoung-suk worked tirelessly behind the scenes, piecing together evidence of the Veilith's true intentions. Each revelation brought them closer to understanding the scale of the deception, but also deepened their fear of what might happen if they failed. The weight of their mission pressed heavily on them, but there was no turning back now. Yuna had become a symbol of resistance, leading protests outside the Incheon base. Her rallies drew thousands of people, many of whom were beginning to question the Veilith's motives. She stood atop a makeshift platform, her voice ringing out over the crowd. They told us they're here to save us, she shouted, holding up a poster with images of the glowing pods Jae-hyun had captured. But look at this. Look at what they're really doing. Her words stirred anger and defiance among the protesters, but they also caught the attention of the Veilith. During one demonstration, strange drones hovered above the crowd, scanning faces with cold precision. Moments later, chaos erupted. Dozens of people collapsed, clutching their heads and screaming in pain. Some fell unconscious, while others writhed on the ground, convulsing violently. Paramedics rushed to help, but no one could explain what caused the sudden outbreak. Jae-hyun filmed the incident from a safe distance, his camera shaking as he captured the horrifying scene. When he reviewed the footage later, he noticed something chilling. The drones emitted faint pulses of light just before the seizures began. It wasn't random. It was deliberate. The Veilith were experimenting on humans, testing how far they could push their technology without causing permanent damage. Back at Co Jean's apartment, the group gathered to discuss the implications. Hayoung-suk adjusted his glasses, studying the video intently. It's some kind of neural scan, he said grimly. They're mapping our brains, learning how we think, probably trying to find weaknesses. For what purpose? Yuna asked, though she already suspected the answer. To control us, Co Jean replied, her voice barely above a whisper. If they can understand how our minds work, they can manipulate us, turn us into obedient slaves. The thought sent a shiver through the room. They realized the stakes were higher than ever. If the Veilith succeeded in cracking humanity's mental defenses, resistance would become impossible. There would be no fight left, only submission. Meanwhile, Co Jean continued analyzing seismic data linked to the Veilith bases. What she discovered chilled her to the bone. Every time the aliens activated their equipment, there was a corresponding spike in geological activity, not just localized tremors, but global shifts. The planet's core was destabilizing, its natural balance disrupted by the invaders' machinery. They're not just harvesting resources, Co Jean explained during one late-night meeting. They're accelerating Earth's decay. It's like they're speeding up the clock, making the planet collapse faster, so they can move on to the next target. Hayoung-suk nodded grimly. It's efficient in a twisted way. Why waste time waiting for a planet to die naturally when you can speed things along? The group knew they couldn't delay any longer. Armed with their findings, they devised a risky plan. Infiltrate the Incheon base, disable the Veilith systems, and expose the truth to the world. Hayoung-suk's program would be their key to accessing the alien network, but getting inside the facility undetected would require every ounce of skill and courage they possessed. Preparations took days. Hayoung-suk fine-tuned his program, ensuring it could interface with Avela technology despite its advanced encryption. Jae-hyun scoured satellite imagery and blueprints leaked by anonymous sources, mapping out potential entry points and escape routes. Seo-jin double-checked her calculations, pinpointing the exact moments when seismic activity surged, hoping to use those windows of instability to mask their movements. And Yuna organized decoy protests to distract the Veilith guard stationed outside the base. On the night of the operation, the air was thick with tension. The four met in a secluded alley near the outskirts of Incheon, dressed in dark clothing and carrying only the essentials. Hyong-suk handed Seo-jin a small device containing his program, his hands trembling slightly. "This is everything we've got," he said. "Make it count." Seo-jin nodded, slipping the device into her pocket. "We'll get in, shut them down, and get out. Simple." "Simple doesn't mean easy," Jae-hyun muttered, adjusting the strap of his backpack. Inside were tools, spare batteries, and a first aid kit. Everything they might need in case things went wrong. Yuna gave each of them a determined smile. "Let's do this." For everyone out there who still believes in hope, under the cover of darkness, they approached the base. The perimeter was patrolled by floating drones and armed Veilith soldiers, their glowing eyes scanning the area constantly. Using Jae-hyun's map, they slipped through a narrow gap in the fence, avoiding detection. Inside, the facility loomed ahead, its walls pulsating faintly with an otherworldly light. As they moved deeper into the complex, the air grew colder and the hum of machinery became deafening. Corridors stretched endlessly, lined with glowing conduits and strange symbols etched into the walls. At every turn, they encountered new horrors. Rooms filled with suspended animation pods, laboratories where human subjects lay strapped to operating tables, and storage chambers overflowed with raw materials extracted from Earth's crust. "This is worse than I imagined," Seo-jin whispered, her voice trembling. "They're treating us like livestock." "We can't let this continue," Yuna said firmly, though her face was pale. "Keep moving." Finally, they reached the central chamber, a massive room dominated by a towering console covered in intricate controls. This was the heart of the Veilith operation, the nexus of their power. Seo-jin immediately set to work, connecting Hyong-suk's device to the alien interface. Lines of code scrolled across the screen as the program fought to bypass the security protocols. "They're on to us," Jae-hyun hissed suddenly, pointing toward the entrance. A group of Veilith soldiers marched into the chamber, their weapons raised. Behind them floated Ambassador Kael'thor, his shimmering blue skin catching the dim light. "You humans are persistent," Kael'thor said, his tone dripping with disdain. "Did you truly believe you could stop us?" Seo-jin ignored him, her fingers flying across the keyboard. The program was close to breaking through, but time was running out. Jae-hyun stepped forward, brandishing a makeshift weapon crafted from scraps of metal. "You underestimated us," he spat. "And that's your mistake." A tense standoff ensued. Jae-hyun and Yuna faced off against the Veilith soldiers, buying precious seconds for Seo-jin to complete the hack. Sparks flew as improvised weapons clashed with alien technology, the sound of battle echoing through the chamber. Yuna hurled herself at one of the soldiers, knocking him off balance, while Jae-hyun dodged blasts of energy, retaliating with whatever he could grab. Suddenly, the console emitted a high-pitched whine. Seo-jin let out a triumphant cry. "I'm in." But victory was short-lived. Alarms blared throughout the facility, and red lights flashed overhead. Kael'thor sneered, raising his hand. "Your efforts are futile. Even now, our fail-safe protocols are activating. You cannot undo what has been set in motion." The ground beneath them began to shake violently, threatening to collapse the entire structure. Seo-jin grabbed the device and stuffed it back into her pocket. "We have to go now." Yuna hesitated, looking back at the pods and the helpless people trapped inside. "What about them?" "There's nothing we can do for them right now," Seo-jin said, her voice breaking. "If we don't stop the Veilith, none of us will survive." With heavy hearts, they turned and ran, retracing their steps through the labyrinthine corridors. The base was falling apart around them, walls crumbling and floors splitting open. Jae-hyun led the way, guiding them toward the exit with unshakable determination. Just as they reached the final stretch, a massive explosion rocked the facility, sending debris raining down. Yuna pushed Seo Jin and Jae Hyun ahead of her, shouting, "Go! I'll hold them off." "No!" Seo Jin screamed, reaching for her, but was too late. Yuna disappeared into the smoke and dust, sacrificing herself to ensure the others escaped. Tears streaming down their faces, Seo Jin and Jae Hyun sprinted the last few meters, bursting out into the cool night air just as the base imploded behind them. They collapsed onto grass, gasping for breath, their bodies battered but alive. As they stared at the burning ruins, a mixture of grief and resolve settled over them. Yuna's sacrifice wouldn't be in vain. They had struck a blow against the Valeth, exposing their lives and crippling their operations. But the fight wasn't over yet. "We'll finish this," Jae-hyun said, his voice steady despite the pain in his chest. "For Yuna, for everyone." Seo Jin nodded, her jaw clenched. "Yes, we'll make sure humanity never forgets what happened here." And with that promise, they rose to their feet, ready to face whatever came next. The explosion at the Incheon base sent shockwaves through the city, both literally and figuratively. Flames licked the night sky as debris rained down, lighting up the darkness with an eerie orange glow. Emergency sirens wailed in the distance, and panicked citizens fled their homes, unsure of what was happening. For Seo Jin and Jae Hyun, standing amidst the chaos, the moment felt surreal. They had succeeded in disabling the Valeth systems, but the cost weighed heavily on their hearts. Yuna's sacrifice replayed in their minds over and over again. Her final act of bravery, staying behind to buy them time, had saved their lives. Yet the guilt gnawed at them relentlessly. "She shouldn't have done that," Seo Jin whispered, her voice trembling. "We could have found another way." Jae Hyun shook his head, his eyes fixed on the burning ruins. She knew there wasn't another way. She gave us a chance to finish this, to make sure her fight wasn't wasted. They sat in silence for a while, watching the fire consume what remained of the Valeth base. The ground still trembled beneath them, a reminder of the damage already done to Earth's fragile balance. Despite their victory, they couldn't shake the feeling that it was only temporary. The Valeth were cunning, resourceful, and far more advanced than humanity. Destroying one facility wouldn't stop them. It would only slow them down. "We need to move," Jae Hyun said finally, breaking the silence. "If any of them survived, they'll be looking for us." Seo Jin nodded, forcing herself to focus. Yuna's death wouldn't mean anything if they didn't keep fighting. Together, they gathered their strength and began walking away from the wreckage, blending into the crowd of evacuating civilians. The streets were chaotic, people shouting, children crying, cars abandoned in the rush to escape. Amidst the confusion, no one noticed two exhausted figures slipping quietly into the shadows. Back in Seoul, they regrouped at Hyong-suk's workshop. The elderly engineer greeted them with relief, though his expression darkened when he saw the pain in their eyes. "Where's Yuna?" he asked cautiously. "She stayed behind," Seo Jin replied, her voice hollow. "To save us." Hyong-suk bowed his head, closed his eyes for a moment. When he looked up again, his face was etched with determination. "Then we honor her memory by finishing what she started." The group spent hours reviewing the data Seo Jin had managed to salvage from the base. Hyong-suk's program had successfully uploaded a virus into the Valeth network before the explosion, corrupting their systems and causing widespread malfunctions across other facilities worldwide. Satellite images showed similar explosions occurring near Valeth installations in Europe, North America, and Asia. It seemed their sabotage had triggered a chain reaction, crippling the invaders' operations on a global scale. But the Valeth weren't defeated yet. Reports poured in of alien ships descending from orbit, attempting to repair the damaged bases or establish new ones. Governments that had once welcomed the aliens now scrambled to respond, tore between fear of retaliation and hope for humanity's survival. Public opinion shifted rapidly as videos of the pods and experiments leaked online, sparking outrage and protests worldwide. "We bought ourselves some time," Jae-hyun said, studying the latest updates on his laptop. "But they're adapting. If we don't hit them harder and faster, they'll recover." Seo Jin agreed. Their technology is tied to Earth's core. Every time they activate it, they destabilize the planet further. We need to destroy the source, their main command center. Finding the location of the command center proved difficult. The Valith kept its existence hidden, embedding it deep within their largest spacecraft orbiting Earth. Breaking into such a fortress seemed impossible, but the group refused to give up. They pored over intercepted transmissions, analyzed patterns in the aliens' movements, and pieced together clues from fragmented intelligence reports. Finally, Hyong-suk made a breakthrough. Buried in the alien designs he'd studied earlier was a reference to a central hub, a structure capable of controlling all Valith operations simultaneously. It matched descriptions of the orbiting ship, confirming their suspicions. "This is it," he said, pointing to a diagram on his screen. "If we can infiltrate this hub and plant the virus directly, we can shut them down completely." The plan was risky, bordering on suicidal. Getting aboard the spaceship required bypassing layers of advanced security, including energy shields and automated defenses. Even if they succeeded, escaping alive would be nearly impossible. But they had no choice. Humanity's future depended on their success. Preparations took days. Hyong-suk modified his program to target the central hub specifically, ensuring it could spread uncontrollably once activated. Jae-hyun used his contacts to acquire a small shuttle capable of reaching orbit, a relic from an old space program, barely functional but enough for their needs. Seo-jin calculated trajectories and entry points, mapping out every detail of their approach. On the eve of their mission, the group gathered in Hyong-suk's workshop for one last meeting. The air was thick with tension, each person lost in their thoughts. Finally, Jae-hyun broke the silence. "Whatever happens tomorrow, I want you to know how proud I am of all of us. What we've done, what Yuna did, it's given people hope again." Seo-jin nodded, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "Hope is all we have left, and as long as we hold on to it, we can win." Hyong-suk handed them the device containing the virus, his hand steady despite the gravity of the moment. "Remember, timing is everything. Plant the virus, then get out as fast as you can. Don't wait around, not even for a second." With heavy hearts but unwavering resolve, they boarded the shuttle early the next morning. As it lifted off, shaking violently against Earth's gravity, they stared out the windows at the planet below. Cities glowed faintly in the pre-dawn light, surrounded by vast expanses of land and water. It was beautiful and fragile, a reminder of why they were risking everything. Reaching orbit was easier than expected. The Valeth were too focused on repairing their damaged bases to notice the tiny shuttle sneaking past their defenses. Once close enough to the massive alien ship, Jae-hyun guided the craft toward a docking bay, using the cover debris floating nearby to mask their approach. The bay doors opened automatically, pulling them inside with magnetic force. Inside the ship, the atmosphere was cold and sterile, the walls lined with pulsating conduits and glowing symbols. The hum of machinery filled the air, louder than anything they'd encountered before. Armed with improvised weapons and sheer determination, Seo-jin and Jae-hyun moved cautiously through the corridors, following Hyong-suk's map to the central hub. Every step brought new challenges. Automated turrets fired bursts of energy, forcing them to take cover behind fallen equipment. Strange creatures, biomechanical hybrids created by the Valeth, lunged at them, their movements jerky and unnatural. Each encounter left them battered and bruised, but they pressed on, driven by the knowledge that failure wasn't an option. Finally, they reached the central hub, a cavernous chamber dominated by a towering console. Streams of light flowed through transparent tubes, connecting the structure to every corner of the ship. Seo-jin immediately got to work, attaching Hyong-suk's device to the interface. The screen lit up with alien code, scrolling faster than she could read. "It's working," she exclaimed, her voice tinged with excitement. "The virus is spreading." Before they could celebrate, alarms blared throughout the ship. Red lights flashed overhead, and the sound of heavy footsteps echoed down the corridor. Ambassador Kael'thor appeared, flanked by a squad of Valeth soldiers. His blue skin shimmered with anger, his eyes blazing with hatred. "You humans are relentless," he snarled, "but your resistance ends here." Jae-hyun stepped forward, blocking Seo-jin as she worked. "You underestimated us," he said, gripping his weapon tightly. And that's your downfall. A fierce battle erupted, energy blasts illuminating the chamber. Jaehyun fought valiantly, taking down several soldiers before being overwhelmed. Seo-jin screamed his name, but there was no time to mourn. The virus was almost finished uploading, and the entire ship was beginning to collapse around them. With tears streaming down her face, Seo-jin completed the process and yanked the device free. "It's done," she whispered, clutching it to her chest. "Now let's go." But escape wasn't easy. The corridors twisted and turned, collapsing under the strain of the virus spreading through the ship's systems. Seo-jin ran as fast as she could, dodging falling debris and leaping over gaps in the floor. Behind her, explosions rocked the vessel, propelling her forward with each blast. Finally, she reached the shuttle bay, where the tiny craft waited. With shaking hands, she climbed aboard and initiated the launch sequence. As the shuttle detached from the dying ship, she looked back one last time, watching as the Veiled vessel imploded in a spectacular burst of light. Exhausted and grief-stricken, Seo-jin piloted the shuttle back toward Earth, her heart heavy with loss but filled with hope. They had done it. They had struck a fatal blow against the invaders. Now, it was up to humanity to rebuild and reclaim their world. The shuttle descended through Earth's atmosphere, glowing red-hot as it re-entered the planet's embrace. Seo-jin gripped the controls tightly, her knuckles white from the strain. Her mind raced with images of what she had left behind. The burning alien ship, Jaehyun's final stand, and Yuna's ultimate sacrifice. Each memory was a weight on her shoulders, but they also fueled her determination to see this mission through to the end. As the craft touched down in a desolate field outside Seoul, Seo-jin stepped out into the cool morning air. The world around her felt eerily quiet, as if holding its breath after the chaos of the past days. Smoke still lingered in the distance, remnants of the Veiled bases destroyed by the virus Hyung-suk had created. But despite the destruction, there was a sense of hope, an unspoken belief that humanity had turned a corner. Seo-jin made her way back to Hyung-suk's workshop, where the elderly engineer awaited news of their success or failure. When he saw her walking toward him, his face lit up with relief, though sadness lingered in his eyes. "You made it," he said softly, embracing her like a father with a long-lost child. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "We did it. The central hub is gone. Their systems are collapsing." Hyung-suk sighed deeply, leaning against a workbench. "Good. That buys us time. But we're not out of danger yet." News of the Veiled defeat spread quickly. Governments that had once bowed to the aliens now scrambled to reclaim control, while citizens took to the streets in celebration. Videos of the alien ships exploding in orbit went viral, sparking cheers and applause worldwide. For the first time in months, people dared to believe in a future free from fear. But Seo-jin knew better than to let her guard down. The Veileth might have been weakened, but they weren't gone. Survivors could regroup, rebuild, and return stronger than ever. Humanity needed to prepare, not just for another attack, but for rebuilding a fractured world. Over the following weeks, Seo-jin worked tirelessly alongside Hyung-suk and other scientists to study the remnants of Veiled technology. They salvaged whatever they could from the wreckage of the bases, analyzing its potential uses. Some pieces were repurposed to repair Earth's damaged infrastructure, while others were locked away, deemed too dangerous to handle without further research. In public, Seo-jin became a symbol of resilience, speaking at rallies and conferences about the importance of unity and vigilance. She shared stories of Yuna's bravery and Jaehyun's selflessness, ensuring their sacrifices wouldn't be forgotten. "We won because ordinary people stood up and fought back," she told crowds gathered in city squares. "Because we refused to give up, even when everything seemed hopeless." Her words resonated deeply, inspiring millions to join efforts to rebuild. Communities came together to clean up debris, restore power grids, and care for those affected by the Veiled occupation. Farmers planted crops in fields once stripped bare by alien harvesters, while engineers worked to stabilize the planet's destabilized core. Slowly but surely, life began to return to normal. Yet, beneath the surface, tension simmered. Not everyone agreed on how to move forward. Some argue for stricter regulations to prevent similar invasions in the future, advocating for global cooperation and transparency. Others push for militarization, insisting humanity needed weapons capable of defending itself against extraterrestrial threats. Debates raged in parliaments and town halls, reflecting the scars left by the Veiled Invasion. C.O. Jean found herself caught in the middle of these discussions, often called upon to offer insights based on her experiences. While she supported measures to strengthen Earth's defenses, she also emphasized the importance of preserving humanity's values. "We can't become like them," she warned during one heated debate. "If we lose sight of who we are, if we let fear dictate our choices, then we've already lost." Despite the challenges, progress was undeniable. Cities rebuilt themselves, blending modern advancements with lessons learned from the Veiled tech. Schools reopened, teaching children not only math and science, but also the value of courage and critical thinking. Artists painted murals depicting heroes like Yuna and Jaehyun, immortalizing their bravery for generations to come. One evening, C.O. Jean stood atop Namsan Tower, gazing out over Seoul. The city lights twinkled below, a testament to humanity's resilience. Beside her, Hayoung-suk leaned on his cane, smiling faintly. "It's beautiful, isn't it?" he said, his voice filled with pride. "It is," C.O. Jean replied, her tone softening. "But it's fragile. We can't forget that." Hayoung-suk nodded. "No, we can't, but look how far we've come. Even after everything, people found a way to hope again." C.O. Jean thought of Yuna's fiery speeches, Jae-hyun's unwavering determination, and all the countless others who had fought alongside them. Their actions had sparked a chain reaction, igniting a flame of resistance that refused to be extinguished. It was proof that even in the darkest times, humanity could rise above. As dawn broke over the horizon, painting the sky in hues of gold and pink, C.O. Jean felt a rare moment of peace. The road ahead would be long and difficult, but she no longer walked it alone. Together, with survivors, dreamers, and fighters, they had forged a new path forward. And so, under the watchful gaze of a rising sun, C.O. Jean whispered a silent promise to those who had fallen. "We'll keep going. For you, for Earth, for all of us. The battle may have ended, but the journey was just beginning."